This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Reminder that we do have Mishnah Yainis. We're learning about we started now Mishnah Saita, and the number to call if you would like to access Mishnah Saita is 718-906. Thank you. It's 718-906-6471. It's plenty of time to start Saita now since we started it on Monday. And we only started with the first Mishnah, the last Mishnah Nazir, the first Mishnah of Saita, so it's not too late. If you start with our Saita now, you finish Masechta Saita on our Sarva tables. Okay, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, and Baruch Hashem. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us this evening for the learning of Torah Hashem, Be'ezus Hashem Yisrael. As always, we begin Rishus Asra of Landau with continued appreciation to all of you for coming and making this year possible. We learn with appreciation to the Pans and Travis families. We learn that all those that have suffered misery from Hurricane Sandy should have Hashem replenish them and get back to life even better than the way it was before the Nehera. We ask Hashem that all those that are awaiting their shidduch should find their shidduch quickly and easily. All those that are awaiting children should be blessed with Zarachai, a healthy mommy, healthy baby. All those that are looking for parnasa, better parnasa, should find is the Rebbe for the Kavod, and all of us should enjoy lange gesunte Zisa Shalom Bayis. All those that have been touched by the dead Machal, not yet an Achla, the lady diseases, should have a Refuah Shalem and the Seksha Show. All of us and our loved ones should always be healthy. As people try to get their lives back after the havoc caused by the Rabbeinu Shalom through Hurricane Sandy, it's interesting to note the change of times. The real estate premium known as a waterfront property might become a thing of the past, as now people realize that waterfront property might be no property overnight. It's interesting that it wasn't so long ago that there was a group of people that wanted the doctor to live next to the water. And I'm not just talking about the sea-loving people. You remember once in this year I spoke about that I wondered why the Kosovo Rebbe started his community in Union City. I mean, it's basically a Cuban village. And I wondered why he set up his states in such a community. And I was told by Chassidim that I even know that the Rebbe wanted his Chassidim to live amongst people that did not live in a fancy high lifestyle. He didn't want them that they should feel the need to need Gashmias. So he picked a community where the houses were simple, the cars were simple, the dress was simple, so that they shouldn't become submerged in the needs of Eilam Hazeh. When I mentioned it to Scully Rebbe told me that he heard a different reason, and that is that because Rebbe was a survivor of the Holocaust, and people that survived the Holocaust had a strong feeling to live near the water because it was a route for escape. So they had this tendency to gravitate to live near the water. So you see, there are times that people want to live near the water, and then the pendulum swings, and people say, "Get me out of here! I'm not living near the water." And the truth of the matter is that Eila v'recha v'Eila v'susiv v'anachnu b'shem Hashem v'kein na'aski. You know, people say, "I'm running to Florida." They're running to Florida until Chas v'Shalom there's a big earthquake there. You know, So then they're gonna move inland until there's a playground, what it looks like. And then people want to get to be near the borders that they could escape. So the truth of the matter is that we have to daven to Hashem. It's interesting. I'll tell you a little personal vignette. We had in front of our house in Staten Island. The city has a tree in front of everybody's house. So it seems to be the city was going around and repairing and cutting down sick trees. So one day I come home and the tree in front of the house is missing. So I asked my wife, you know what happened to our tree? So she says, yeah, they came and they cut it down. So I said to her, so are they putting it back up? So she said to me, well, I didn't give it much thought, but they asked me, do we want another tree? I told them no. So I was kind of perturbed. It's nice to have a tree. You live in the suburbs. You have a tree in front of your house. It's nice to have a tree. I was even more dismayed because we signed off that we didn't want a tree, so the cable pump company that has cable on the block put their cable thing in front of our house, that little green thing, instead of the tree. So here I have to have in front of my house a cable tunnel instead of a tree. Well, but now when people have trees falling into their houses and people have trees crushing their cars, and many people lost their cars, the trees came down and they're made to fall away from the house, so they fell on top of their cars and they mamish made their cars pancakes. So I was kind of happy that I didn't have a tree, So the pendulum swings, and the bottom line is that we have to. That's why we have Sim Shalom. That's why we have to have Shema Keleinu, and we have to pray for Hashem as always in anticipation that we should be safe and sound. Now, it's interesting that in our Parsha it says a very interesting historical comment that at first glance doesn't seem to fit with the historical information that we have in Parshas Rabbah. It says in the pasuk as follows: "Vayhi rav ba'aretz." There was a famine in the land. Milvad harav arishon asher hoya b'mei Avram. Besides the first famine that happened in the days of Avram. Now, if you look in Parshas Rabbah, that wasn't the first famine. In Parshas Rabbah, the Parshas Rabbah gives us the historical note. It's an interesting bit of historical trivia that the world knew 10 great famines. There were 10 great famines. The first famine, says the Medrash, was Bimei Adam Arishon. And it's hinted to because the pasuk says, Arura Hadama Bavurech. The earth will be cursed because of you. That was the first great famine. The second one was Bimei Lemech. And it says over there in the days of Lemech, Minat Hadama Asher Eirura Hashem. From the land that Hashem cursed. That was the second great famine. The third one was Bimei Avram, by Hirav Baritz. And the fourth one was in this week's Parsha, the Rav with Yitzchak by Hirav Baritz. So how could it say when Yitzchak had the famine that catapulted him to go into the land of the Philistines, into the land of Abimelech, how could he say that, how could the pasuk say Milvad harav arishon, besides the first Rav? It wasn't besides the first Rav, it was the fourth Rav. It wasn't the second Rav. You're discounting the Rav at the time of Adam and the time of Lemech. So you might answer, if you wanted to give an elementary answer, you would say, well, this is talking about after the flood. And that was after the flood, it was only the second famine. Or you could say it's talking for the Jewish people. After Avraham Avinu, it was the second famine. However, in the Sefer Ma'orei Ya'ar, he gives a much more profound answer. And he says as follows. He says that there are two types of famines. There's a famine that comes for punishment, and there's a famine that comes for nisayon, to test us. He says the first two famines in the history of mankind, the famine by Adam and the famine by Lemech, was clearly for punishment. Because the Pasuk says, Ura Adama. Right? The Pasuk says the earth has been cursed. That's clearly for punishment. He says the famine at the time of Avram and the famine at the time of Yitzchak was for an Nisayan. In Avram's case, it was clear what the Nisayan is. Avram's case, it was a Nisayan that Hashem told him, and I'm going to take care of you. Here, you're not going to be a goy gadol. There, you're going to be a goy gadol. Here, you're not going to have fame. There, you're going to have fame. I'll be with you. No, I'll take care of you. And then there's a famine. So it was a Nisayan. It wasn't a punishment. It was a Nisayan. And the same thing was true at the time of Yitzchak. It pushed him down to Yitzchak, and you had all the Nisyanis with the Philistines, with the Be'eros, with the wells of water, and how Yitzchak would keep the peace, and what he would do with his wife when she was abducted with Ahimelech. So it was for an Nisayan. So it's interesting, because when there is a natural disaster, like a famine, usually, here the Torah doesn't tell us what generated the famine. There are different things that could generate a famine. It could be a drought. It could be that the crops suffered because of locusts or from blast or mildew. There are different things that could generate a famine. It doesn't tell us. But if there's a natural disaster, the first thing that we think about is we think about Einish. Me'asa Hashem Lanu, like we spoke about last week. But we also have to know that Hashem does this sometimes not for an Einish, but for a Nisayan, for a test, to test us. Now, there are times that it's both. For some people it's an Einish, and for other people it's an Nisayan. And we see clearly over here the Nisayan of Klal Yisrael coming through with Chesed, with Achnasas Orchim. It's clear that this was an opportunity of a test to see if people will open their pocketbooks, will open their hearts, if people will band together, and therefore we shouldn't only look at it. That's the great lesson when it says Milvad Harav Arishan. You're right. It really wasn't Harav Arishan. It was really Milvad 3 Ravs. But this was the first Rav that was for an Nisayan. There are times that when the Rebbeinu Shalom does these things, he doesn't do it. We shouldn't only think in terms of an Einish, it's also in terms of a Nisayan, and we know that the purpose of a Nisayan is to make us greater. Right? We're challenged, and that brings out the greatness, and we do see. I mean, the van from our Shul went to the Rockaways on Sunday to help out, and they told me there was unbelievable how many volunteers were there. It was unbelievable how many people were sending food and clothing. It's just amazing to see. It shows the greatness. It lifts Klal Yisrael and a nace on a banner. It shows how great we are. As a matter of fact, you get an idea. Every Motzei Shabbos we make the statement that Hashem, just like Hashem separates between that which is holy and that which is mundane, and darkness and light. He also separates between Beit Yisrael La'amim. The difference between Yisrael La'amim, we see that there are communities that they have to call out the National Guard because there's so much looting. Mamish, people are desperate, and people come and they into their homes and loot. And then we look at Klal Yisrael, how they're going and they're helping people find things in debris and recover stuff. We see the difference between Yisrael La'amim. It's such a beautiful thing to see. I mean, we know already that we were proven, when it comes to looting, we were proven, our sanctity was proven in Mitzrayim, where during the Makov Choshech, we didn't take anything from our tormentors, let alone we didn't slit the throats of the people that murdered our babies, the people that threw our babies into the Yam. We didn't slit anybody's throats, but also only later did we take loans. And when they claim that we don't have it, we tell them, what do you mean you don't have it? We saw it during the Makov Choshech. But we didn't take anything. And if we took anything, we would take from people that stole from us everything, from people that tormented us for over 117 years. But no, Klal Yisrael doesn't loot. Klal Yisrael doesn't loot. That's Hamavdil Ben Yisrael La'amim. We see the greatness. It's interesting that it's brought down that the famine that the Rabbi Shalom brought in the time of Avram elevated Avram in the eyes of the nations. Paro abducted his wife, and then Hashem smote Paro, all his house, none of their offices operated. They weren't able to go to the bathroom, they weren't able to have children, right? And Paro had to openly return. Imagine the most powerful monarch at that time in the world had to humbly return the woman and ask that Avram should pray for him. And then he went ahead and did the most magnificent thing. He gave his daughter, the royal princess Hagar, to Avram as a cleaning lady. Said better she should be a Meshosas in your home than a royal princess in my palace. So what that did is that the result of this was it made Avram great in the world. And the same thing at the time of Yitzchak, when Abimelech had to return Rivka, and the world saw the power of Yitzchak and the power of Avram's family. So here too we have to know, in our shul we're fortunate to have the yeshiva of Bell Harbor relocated in our shul. And they're learning in our shul, and they're dorming in our community. And I spoke to the Bachrim, and I told the Bachrim that we find that exile, I said, you're in exile. Here you are, you were in Bell Harbor learning, and all of a sudden you're exiled to distant Staten Island. Maybe some of you never ever came across the Verrazano Bridge. All of a sudden you're exiled to Staten Island. You have to know that exile leads to great things. Think about it. Avram was exiled to Mitzrayim, and because of that, he came back with a pearl called Hagar, and it was in the schus of Hagar that Yitzchak was born. That's why Hagar is become after 208. And Yitzchak is become after 208. So Rimenu said, Ulai Yibana Mimem. What else do we know? We know Moshe Rabbeinu, he had a cushy position in the palace of Paro. He could have been, he was situated at the right time in a power position to help his brethren, and all of a sudden, because of Dasan and Aviram, he was exiled to Midian. But that exile got him Yeshida. That exile got him Tzipora. And of course, over there, afterwards, he found the burning bush, the Sneboyer Be'esh, which led to his greatness. Here we have Elimelech. He was in Beis Lechem. The family was exiled because of a famine. They ended up in the state of him, and they came back with Rus, the great pearl of Rus, who would be the Ima Shel Malchus, who would be the mother of the Malchus Beis David and the future Melech HaMashiach. I told the boys, who knows, who had to come to Staten Island because somebody's going to notice him in Staten Island and he's going to be Mishadek with a girl from Staten Island. Who knows? Most of these boys never saw Staten Island before. I told them, you're exiled here. It's brought down that why is Klal Yisrael spread al Arba Kanfasaretz to the four corners of the world, so that they should bring back Gerim from all four corners of the world. So people are exiled in order to expose other people to Yiddishkeit. I said, you're going to come to Staten Island, and there's going to be a family that's debating whether they should send their child to college or to yeshiva, and they see a good, fine, refined menschliche yeshiva bacher, and it's gonna cause people to send their bacher to yeshiva. So that's an amazing thing what exile does. There's many, many, many reasons for what the Rebbeinu Shalom does. I remember Rav Miller used to say that as a result of the Holocaust, we have here on Ocean Parkway all of a sudden Sephardim and Ashkenazim living right on top of one another. And all of a sudden, the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim are learning from each other's strengths. They never were thrown on top of each other like this. But there was a natural disaster, and all of a sudden, Sephardim from Morocco, from Istanbul, they're living together with Jews from Hungary and Czechoslovakia. That never happened. And all of a sudden, the Hungarian Jew and the Czechoslovakian Jew looks at the way the Sephardi kisses the Chacham's hand. And he sees such an amazing kavod harav, kavod for the Chacham. It's a big lesson. Big lesson. To learn from a Sephardi. You know, when I'm a scholar resident in a Sephardi shul, my wife wants me to wear a glove. She said, by the time you come home for lunch, your hand is soaked. It's true. So many people kiss me so many times on the hand, my hand is sopping. Then he says the Sephardi Jew watches how the Ashkenaz Jew is learning Gemara, and now the Sephardi Jew also learns Gemara, but we learn from each other. It's an amazing thing. That's what Golus does. It gets people to enlighten one another. Rivka bas Besuel ha'arami bekadan aram achois lovan ha'aram. That's her lineage. Not a very good shidduch. I think if you saw that on the shidduch resume, you would tell them to keep it. Rivka bas Besuel ha'arami. Rivka, the daughter of Besuel ha'arami from Padan Aram. That's father of Russia, a place that's in Russia. Achois lovan ha'arami, a brother that's in Russia. We know that now. But yet the Yitzchak Hashem and Yitzchak prevailed and pressed Hashem with Oichat Ishta. So Rav Chaim HaKadosh says that the reason why Yitzchak had to pray so feverishly for a child, it says here, but he had to press with a tremendous effort. And Rachel and Rivka was in Akara for 20 years. Rav Chaim HaKadosh says it was to deflect the bracha that Lavan gave. Lavan gave a bracha to his sister Achosenu, Atayi Alfei Rabbanim. You should be to thousands and tens of thousands, to thousands and myriad. So in order that it shouldn't be that people think that it was from the bracha of Lavan, she had to go 20 years without a child. She had to, Yitzchak had to pray feverishly that everybody should know that it wasn't from Lavan's brother. And the Sefer Niflois, Mitzvah says, I'll prove to you that that was the reason. Because he says, when it says in the Pasuk, Rivka bas Besuel ha'arami, Rivka bas Besuel ha'arami is Rosh Hashanah Rebava. Rivka bas Besuel ha'arami is Rosh Hashanah Rebava. So it was because of the bracha that you should be la'alfei Rebava, that therefore that's why Yitzchak had to press so much, and that's why she had to wait 20 years. Now, you have to know, people weren't sure who the real Lavan was. We know that Lavan was very good at making himself look pristine. That's why his name is Lavan. He's white. He came off as pure as the driven snow. He always said no. He ran to Yaakov. You know, he really wanted to see where the money is, but he ran like it was family. Lavan always, I can't give the younger one before the older one. He wanted more money. The man always made himself look white. Actually, Lavan is the same level letters as Noah. Right? He says, oh, I took care of Yaakov all these years, you know, I took care of the family, look how they thrived by me. He was a novel charging his own flesh and blood he had to work for 7 years to get a shidduch. Right? He was a novel. But he looked Lavan, he looked white, and the truth of the matter is even Yitzchak wasn't sure who the real Lavan is. There's a remarkable pshat in a Rashi. A remarkable pshat. I don't get enough chances, which is my fault, to quote the masculine David, who's one of the premier Pirushim on Rashi. But he says a remarkable pshat. We know that it says in the Pasuk that Yitzchak commissioned Yaakov to go get married. El Lavan ben Besuel ha'arami. You should go to Lavan, the son of Besuel ha'arami. Achi Rivka, the brother of Rivka. In other words, the brother of the Mameh. And Yaakov Yosef, the mother of Yaakov Yosef. Yes, good, but now I don't know that Rivka was the mother of Yaakov Yosef. It has to say, and Yaakov Yosef. So Rashi, it seems like Rashi is stumped about this. So Rashi says, Ein Yaakov Yosef, Eini Yodea Ma Melamdei. I don't know what this teaches us. What does that say? Ein Yaakov Yosef. We know the whole Parshas of Toldos, when we learned the story of Yaakov and Esav, he tried to stop on the Keva. Where are you, on a desert island that you don't know that Rivka is the mother? And all of a sudden, Yitzchak has to send his son, and he tells him that it's Rivka and Yaakov Esav. Well, what does the Torah have to say that for? Says the Master Ladoma, that's not Pshat. Rashi is not saying that he's stumped. That's not what Rashi is saying. Rashi is saying that Yitzchak wasn't sure who the true lover was. Because it says, Roi banim doima la'achaya ein. Most children are like the mother's son. But in this case, one of the children was a tzaddik on Yaakov, and one of the children was a Rasha, Esav. So he says, I'm sending you to Lavan Arami, the brother of Rivka, and Yaakov Esav. He's the mother of Yaakov and Esav, so I don't know who the true Lavan is, and that's what Rashi means. Ein Yaakov Esav, Ein Yodea Ma Melamdei. I don't know what this teaches us about Lavan. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's telling me that Lavan is a tzaddik because he has a son Yaakov, or if it's a Rashi because he has. I'm not sure because Rivka had a son Yaakov, or is he a Russian because Rivka had a son Esav, because Rai Ban B'day Malachim Esav and the mother's brother. So I don't know which way to go. So you see, even Yitzchak wasn't sure about Lavan. Lavan was a big trickster. Now, while you might think that this story that they had to wait 20 years and Yitzchak had to pray so much to deflect the bracha that Lavan gave, you might think it's a nice pshat. But actually it's an extremely contemporary lesson. A very powerful lesson. You know, there are people that lo yaleinu have it sorrow, and they're desperate. So somebody tells them about a certain makubal. The makubal, he examines your ksuba, he looks at your mezuzah, he looks into your palm. So people say, look, I don't know if the guy is for real or not, but it can't hurt. Can't hurt. You know, might help. It can't hurt. You know. So the Master always says it surely can hurt. Because if the guy is a fake, then sometimes the Rabbeinu Shalom will the dafka not give the person a Yeshua in order that he shouldn't give this person credibility. Just like Rivka wasn't given a Yeshua for 20 years in order that people shouldn't say that it was Laban's brother. It's a very frightening thing. People say, I'm going to hedge my bets. I'm going to go to every makubal on the block. You know, maybe one of them will work. It doesn't work that way. One of them could hurt you. And you have to show somebody has a need. Very important lesson. The late Reb Eli Talmud used to say, I just have one question for this guy. Give me 6 numbers. If you give me the 6 numbers, I'm your biggest fan. That's what Reb Eli Talmud used to say. I just need 6 numbers. So we all know, and I've mentioned this in the past, it's just such a beautiful thing that since I'm talking about since I'm talking about the Yitzchak's tefillos, so it says, "Vayeyasa lo Hashem." So Hashem listened to him. So the shaila is, why did Yitzchak have to pray so hard? He was a tzaddik. Rivka was a tzedekis. Why do you have to be here? But the hits to the tefillah. So we all know that Avraham Avinu did not live his full life. It says these are the years that he lived. He lost 5 years because Hashem didn't want him to see Esav go the Tarbis Ra. That wouldn't be a Seder Torah. He's supposed to live for 180, but he died 5 years earlier, so he shouldn't see Esav go the Tarbis Ra. On the day that Avraham passed away, Esav did 5 sins. He was He killed somebody, he did 5 things. So the Mela, Avram died in the nick of time. So it comes out that if Yitzchak and Rivka would have waited 5 years more to have a child, then Avram could have lived his full life. So in essence, Yitzchak's tefillas had to shorten Avram's life 5 years. And that's why it had to be such intense tefillah to the world without Avram for 5 years. It's Nishkan Pashat to that. It needed a lot of tefillah. So Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld says, I'll prove to you that that's pshat. And this is an amazing gematria. Vayei also loy Hashem. And remember Hashem's Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's 26. Vayei also loy Hashem in gematria is exactly 748. And that's exactly Chomei Shon. 5 years. 748. So he had to pray, but because of this prayer, Avraham Avinu died 5 years early. So that Vayei Hashem is exactly the gematria Chomei Shon. When Rabbi Aaron Kotler heard this, Rabbi Aaron Kotler's the Rishiv of Lakewood, he said that it had to be Ruach HaKodesh. So he reported that Rabbi Aaron Kotler said that such a word could only be said in Ruach HaKodesh. Now the truth of the matter is that I happen to just notice, and I can assure you it's not Ruach HaKodesh, but I happen to just notice that the word tisma is also 748. Because with this report of Vayei Asal Hashem, they rejoice. So it happens to be that tisma is also 740. It just happens to be. But anyway, it's amazing how every year you see new things. I mean, every year we talk about why would Yaakov want to run out if he's learning from a malach. You understand, Asa wanted to get me out of here. You know, he wasn't into it. He wanted to go to the Beis Avodah. But why was Yaakov running out? And we all know the different tirutzim that he said, I give up the malach in order to get away from Asa, or because he wanted to learn with Torah about Melus and how to have it spoon-fed, or because he wanted to be learning Almanas La'asais. But Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld over here says a fascinating thing. It says, so she had this civil war inside of her. But Taiman, she said, what's going to be with me? She didn't know she's going to make it. So what did she went to Shem Ben Noach. And Shem told her, Rav Yavoy Tzor. The older one is going to serve the younger. Said Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, Shem gave her medicine. After that, the children stopped running. Says each one ran to get out. But once they heard Rav Yavoy Tzor, the older one is going to serve the younger one, then the first one that comes out, they stopped running. Nobody wanted to come out first. So he said, that solved the problem. He cured her. And that, by the way, that's pshat. Mishiyesh chacham b'soy pesa. Mishiyesh koyla b'soy pesa. Yelech etzel chacham. You have to go to chacham. She went to Shem. It doesn't say Yelech etzel just sadik. Chacham. Shem with his chachma solved the problem. Took away her pain. The Yikru Shmai Esav. So here we have an interesting thing. Rashi says that while Yaakov was given either by Hashem, or Rashi says Davarach was given by his father. It's interesting because there would be an argument to say that a name given by Hashem is not changed. Yitzchak was never changed because he was given by Hashem. Yaakov was changed, so Rashi says another shot was given by his father. But Esau, Rashi says, was not given by Hashem, it wasn't given by his father. What does it say by Esau? Hakol Korukeh. It was given, that was the name given by the people. He was a wunderkind. He came out, the time Yonatan Ramazil says he came out with front teeth and back teeth, full beard. Came out with a beard. So they said it, Esav. So Rashi says, "Akol koru came with Isha Yanasa the Midmar the Sarai. He was complete with his hair, Keben Shan and Arba, like he lived many years. He came out fully bearded, and he's ready to be a Rosh Hashiva. Right? He came out fully bearded. So why did everybody call him that? Why not his father? The teretz is because since he came out red at the moment, there was a fear that maybe it wasn't Nivla Adam, so they were afraid to give him the bris. They were afraid it was a sakon. And then when he grew up, he refused to have the bris. So there wasn't an opportunity to give him a name. So how did he give his name? People gave him the name. That's why he became known, not from his father, but it became known from the people. And it's very interesting, Ben Ishchai. It says, Vayetze Horisha in Admayim. So the Ben Ishchai says that the Romans and the Edomites always said that the Torah calls Esav Rishon. We're the first people. The Yetzer Rishon, we're number one. Uno. So the Ben Ishchai says you have to understand that sometimes it's not good to be number one. He says, when you're the child of Avram and Yitzchak, number one means is you're starting your new way. You're not like your ancestors. You're the beginning of a new life. If somebody is a Christian, so he follows in the ways of the Slavaic dynasty, the Chaim, the Beis Halevi, the Chaim, you don't want to be number one. You want to be a descendant of Brisk. You want to be Ben Achaben. The Ben Ishchai says the fact that Esav was called Rishon means that he's a new line. It has nothing to do with Avraham. He starts a new line. That's not, and I think that's why we say first and foremost. Because first alone doesn't mean anything. It has to be first and foremost. First might not be good. First might be that you're starting a new line that's bad. Yaakov Ishtam Yoshei B'Yehov. So here we have a famous question that is dealt with in a similar way by many of the Mefarshim. I never saw this answer given to this question. It says, Yaakov Ishtam Yoshei B'Yehov. So Rashi says, what's the definition of Tom? So Rashi says that Tom means, ain't a bucky v'cholei. If while Esav was a Yisayid, he is not a bucky in these things. Misha ain't a chorif l'ramos. He's not sharp. He doesn't know how to engage in deceit and trickery. So the question that everybody asks is that when Rachel Imenu was with Yaakov, she said, listen, my father is going to hoodwink you. You're no match for love. So Yaakov assured her, Ochihu b'ramoyis. He's met his match. I know how to finagle just as well as him. If he's gonna be shrewd and devious, I could be just as devious as him. So what happened to Yaakov Ishtam Yoshei B'Yehov? So the famous answer on this, which I heard personally from Rabbi Yaakov is that originally Yaakov Taka was an Ishtam. Simple. Straight. But then he went to Yeshiva Shem Be'eber, and he learned the Torah of Shem, who was Dufgegang in the Dar Mavel, and he learned the Torah of Eber, who was Dufgegang in the Dar Aflo. And he learned how to deal with crooks. That was the Torah of Shem Be'eber. And who did he give that? It says that Yosef was a Ben Zekunim, Kol Ma'ashalom and B'Shem Be'eber Masalot. Why didn't he give it to the rest of the family? The rest of the family doesn't need that way. But Yosef, go down to Mitzrayim and live in an Eretz Shtufei Zima, he had to have that type. So Rabbi Yaakov says it originally was in Ishtam, But after he went to Shem Ve'ever, then he was Ochi Uberamot. He learned the Torah of Shem. That's what Rabbi Yaakov said. But I saw another mahalach, fascinating mahalach, in the Yalkut HaGershuni. The Yalkut HaGershuni says, and it's really a fascinating shot. The Yalkut HaGershuni says that the Rebbeinu Shalom is known as a Baal Chema. What's a Baal Chema? A Baal Chema means that he has bias over Chema. He has control, mastery over Chema. So Rebbeinu Shalom knows when to exhibit anger and when not. That's a Baal Chema. Rashi is telling us the meaning of Tom. But Yaakov wasn't a Tom, he was an Ish Tom. An Ish Tom is a man that knows how to control the Tamimus. And therefore, when it was needed, Ochiyu B'Ramot, because he wasn't a Tom, he was an Ish Tom. Very interesting shot. It's a different mahal than what Rabbi Yaakov says. Here we have, Sefer Tilas Hashem, says something which is very negel nice. Very negel nice. Vayehi Esav ish yodei tzayid ish son. Esav was a man. Now yodei tzayid has many meanings. He was a hunter par excellence. He had the taken that from Adam Arishan and allowed him to hunt any animals. The animals would come to him. He was a man who was yodei tzayid. The yodei tzayid also means that he was a man that was able to fool you. Right? He asked his father, how do you take ma'isa from salt? Right? Everything was a deception. So he was ish yodei tzayid, ish sodeh. But he behaved a lot differently in the field. The Yaakov ish tom yoishev oyhom. By Esav it says ish twice. Right? That Esav was an ish yodei tzayid, ish sodeh. It doesn't say by Yaakov an ish tom, ish oyhom. Because Yaakov wasn't two different types of people. He wasn't one way in the tent and one way outside. Esav was. Esav, when he was with his father, when he was with people, he was yodei tzayid. You know that trick. When he was in the field, he was the Boban that he really was. In other words, he was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In other words, he had a double identity. Ish yodei tzayid, ish sodeh. Two different types of people. As a matter of fact, the Tilas Hashem says, take it a step further, it says, Yaakov ish tom yoishev oyhom. It emphasizes that even when he was in the tents, even when he was at home, he was still ish tom. That's what it says. Al toden es chavercha ad shetegirel mekayim. Now the Parshas of that Maimer and Pirkei Avos is very important. Don't judge people until you're in their shoes. And people say, look how he's behaving. He's out of work and he's behaving like a mishuk. Until you can't pay the bills, and until you're worried that they're going to throw your children out of school, and until you're worried that your house is going to be foreclosed, and until you're worried that your wife might leave you because you can't pay the bills, and until you're worried about public shame, don't judge other people that are out of work. Don't judge a person who has a wayward child. It says, so you see somebody who's behaving a little bit not so nice because his child was being Mechal Shabbos. You should know you can't even imagine the tzad that person is going through. Making him insane from tzad. So the Parshas Shalom of Toden es chavercha shetigil mekayim, that's enough. But there's another pshat. Al Toden es chavercha, don't judge a person. Don't think you really know him until you get into his house and you see how he behaves at home. Because many people put a good charade on him. Many people put on a good face in the That was Esav. He was an ish yodei tzayid. He knew how to fool you, but he had a totally different face in the field. There are people that are nice and friendly, and they scream at their wives. They curse their wives. There are people in Shul, they sit on the Mizrach band, And they answer and in the business they act without integrity, they cheat, they treat their workers dismally. It's a fact. There's people that have a double identity. They're two-faced. It's interesting. Many times I've pointed out that we have to teach our daughters this. Rabbi said that if it would be up to him, he would teach less Ramban to the girls and teach them cooking classes. The power of cooking to generate love is attested to in the pasuk Vayav Yitzchak es Esav Kitzayim B'Fid. Now, it is amazing that we would take one of the greatest personalities of all time and embarrass him and say that Yitzchak loved Esav. His judgment was clouded because did Esav know how to make a pacham? If you tasted Esav's crepes, you would have loved them all. It's amazing, then. Yeah, Yitzchak is Esav, Kitzayim of him. Well, why does the Torah tell us this? Because the fact of the matter is that food is a way to a man's heart. Man's heart is access through his stomach. And therefore, in Shalom Bayis, if a woman cooks a good meal for her husband, it allows him to look away from a lot of our other imperfections. That's an incredibly important tool for a wife to have. So on an elementary level, of course, there's so much more that's here. The fact of the matter is that Yitzchak, who saw a lot further than we do, he had Das Torah. When he loved Esav, he loved Rameir, who came from Esav. He was loving Rameir. It was a lot more than meets the eye. You think it was talking about Esav, the hunter. He saw an Esav Rameir. Right? The fact of the matter is he loved Esav because he knew that one day when Avram and Yaakov would fail to petition Hashem, he would be able to petition Hashem and say, what, you don't want to have mercy on the B'chayri Yisrael? So what, they sinned. I loved Esav even though he was a sinner. And he would be able to petition. Of course, there's a lot more than meets the eye. There's no question about it. But on the very elementary level, and this is so important, that's why Rabbi Ruvain said he would teach good. I remember I had a young lady in my shul called me up in a panic. Rabbi Weiss, I need your help. What's the matter? I have to write a paper on the 4 pshatim in the Rishonim about the Diglei Midbar. And I don't know them. Could you go over to me the 4 pshatim of the Diglei Midbar? So I told her, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know them. I told her, I don't know them. I would have to hit the books, and I don't have time now. I'm preparing a shir. And then I got off the phone, and I said, why would a girl have to know the 4 different pshatim in Diglei Midbar? Now, I don't want to sound chauvinistic at all, but if you told me that you're teaching her 4 different waffle recipes, I'd be a lot more happy. Because that she's going to use. And that she's going to use to strengthen our children, to learn better, and that she's going to use to generate avo with our husbands and parish of us. Now, the nice is the saintly Maril Diskin didn't want to learn that way. The saintly Maril Diskin says that Vayav Yitzchak es Esav Kitzayim B'Fiv, that Yitzchak loved Esav Kitzayim B'Fiv because he prepared his food. It's a raya that Yitzchak considered Esav a tzaddik because otherwise he wouldn't have trusted his shechita. So the fact Kitzayim B'Fiv shows that he trusted his shechita, and the man shows that he thought he was a tzaddik, and that's why he loved him. That's the way the Maharil Diskin works. Now the next thing I tell you, I have to. Sometimes I warn you that you have to fasten your seatbelt. Say, I don't want anybody. Rabbi Landau doesn't want anybody to sue him, and I don't want you falling off your chairs. I'm going to tell you now something which sounds like it's from another planet. I tell you many times that it's important for us to learn about great tzaddikim, even though it's light years beyond anything that we can aspire to. Because it's good for us to realize, like when you listen to a beautiful piece of music, and your spirits soar, and you get a feeling of how much a person can climb, how much room there is to grow. The same thing is when you hear about the way that tzaddikim in the past lived, we can aspire once in a while to try, once in a blue moon to try to reach such levels. And I'll tell you right now that I am so far from any kind of proximity to this story. It's like the distance from Mizrach Lamar. But I think it's important for us to hear such a story. As the Rambam says, we tell over Maisim Tzaddikim, number one, that we should try to imitate their ways. And number two, that our children, hearing how we speak highly about Tzaddikim, they should want to be Tzaddikim as well, because they hear how we praise the Tzaddikim. There's a sefer that records the life of an incredible tzaddik. The name of the sefer is Ano Abba. And the tzaddik that's discussed is the tzaddik of Shul, Tzvi Kowalski. And this story only became known after his death. And as many of these stories go, it was incredible circumstances how it became known. That's the way it works. After a person dies, we find out about their holiness. While they're alive, they do a lot to conceal it, and after they die, certain things come to light. Anyway, this Rav Shmuel Tzvi gave shir in Yeshiva Beis David, and he gave shir in the morning. And after the shir, every day he would go to his older mother to visit her and to see if he could help her. Every time she would ask him if he ate breakfast. Now he didn't eat breakfast, but he grabbed the coffee before he went to shir. And the truth of the matter is that since coffee can be sometimes breakfast, so he said that he already had Aruchas Habayit, he didn't want to trouble. Then he would go home, and his wife would ask him if he ate. So he didn't want to make his mother look bad, that she didn't give him breakfast. So he told her that he ate already. So he didn't eat till dinner time. This was a regular occurrence for him. Anyway, they say that he had no feelings for food at all. But one time when he was a young bacher, learning in Beis Medrash, he came in and his mother made a soup. And she said, "Tell me, I need your opinion. How does this taste?" So his mother asked him, "You should make him feel bad." He said, "Good, very good." She said, "Have more." So she told her husband, finally Rav Shmuel Tzvi finally told me I found out something he likes is this vegetable soup. So every time he come over, he made it. Not only that, when he got engaged, the Kala asked her mother-in-law, "What does the chassan like?" What does the chassan like? She says, "I have to be honest with you, he never talks about food. There's only one food that I heard from him ever, and that's this vegetable soup." So she taught her to make the vegetable soup. And she would serve this vegetable soup to her husband often. Look, it's the only soup. He must really like it. Anyway, he passes away. And one of the good friends of the family gets a letter from somebody far away saying how much he's going to miss Rav Shmuel Tzvi. Rav Shmuel Tzvi once saved his marriage. So what happened? His wife and him were having very, very big shalom bayis problems over food. She liked to cook one way, he liked to eat another way, and they would constantly fight over food. So he went to Rav Shmuel Tzvi. So Rav Shmuel Tzvi said, on food you're fighting? He said, let me tell you something. Food doesn't really make a difference. One time I came in and my mother made this soup. She said, I put it in my mouth and I felt I was going to vomit. But she asked me how it was. So I'm going to make my mother feel bad. I told her, it's very good, Ma. So she gave me more. If you think that's something, she kept on making it for me. Not only that, she taught it to my collar. What am I going to do, make my wife feel bad every time she made it, especially for me? Minik, I was saying to you, Dano, he says, all my life I ate that soup and I felt like puking each time. And you're upset about food? So the man said, both of us realized how far we are from correct behavior, and we pulled our act together. The letter was shown to the Rebbitzin, and the Rebbitzin read it, and she had tears in her eyes. She said she wished he would have told her. Nobody in the family could even take smelling that soup. But she made it special for him because she knew that her husband loved the soup. Maybe she would have only known. They bring down this mice on the pasuk in this week's Parshas, but asuli matam, and make for me tasty food, kasher ahachti. See, but you see the koiches and nefesh of a person doesn't want his mother to feel bad, doesn't want his wife to feel bad throughout life. It's amazing what people that have control of their emotions and are sensitive to other people. It's amazing what people could do. I mean, I know, I'll tell you right now, that if my wife forgets to put the kishka in the chalent or adds too much paprika, I tell her, there was too much water in the soup, in the chalent, it didn't bubble. I tell you myself, I think my wife's working so hard, maybe I should make it believe that I didn't notice that the kishka is not there. It's an entirely different level of sensitivity. But you see, when we hear these stories from our tzaddikim, it helps us think a little bit about what could be expected from us, on what levels we could reach. I never noticed this. Yitzchak benches Yaakov with Tal HaShemayim. Now we know that the brachas were given on Pesach. And we know it was the first day of Pesach, because that's why that he asked for Shnei Gediyah Yizid. Well, if one man is going to eat 2 goats, you could serve that to Marina Del Rey, to a whole smorgasbord. There was one man on his deathbed, eat 2 goats. But one was the Korban Pesach, one was the Korban Chagiga, it was the night of Pesach. That's why he was given the brachas. That's why we bless our children the night of Pesach. That's why he brought the wine, it was the Abakaisis. Right? B'mirma is the Gemaki Apikaimen. That's why we steal the Apikaimen. Because Yaakov stole the brachas. Oh, that's why he benched him with Tal. Because on the first day of Pesach, we benched Tal. See the things that we don't realize that are there in the Psukim. When he realized, when Esav came in, he realized that Yaakov got the brachas. He saw that the Rebbeinu Shalom made it that it should be Yaakov that gets the brachas, and Esav wasn't what he made out to be, and he saw Pischa Shel Gehenim. It's interesting. The Likutei Basel Likutei says that Yitzchak had 2 frights. When he was on the Akedah, he was scared his life was going to be over. And when he realized that it was Yaakov that he gave the brachas to him. Medrash says, which one was a bigger fright? Medrash says, when it says, Charod G'dayla Admai, this was a bigger fright than the Akedah. Likutei Basel Likutei says that we see from here an interesting question. What's better? to have children, or to have a child that's a Russian? What's better? Now, I would have argued to have a child that's a Russian. Because from that child could come children that are tzaddikim. From grandchildren that are tzaddikim. The Likud of Likud says over here, you see, that Yitzchak, when he was on the Akedah and thinking that he might never have children, he's going to get killed, going to get slaughtered, that was only a charada. But when he found Esau was a Russian, I was charada G'nai L'Adamai. And there's an Orach Chaim HaKodesh that says this beferish. Where does he say it? When Yaakov, after 22 years, has that dramatic reunion with Yosef, he says, Musa Apam, now I can die, he says. Acharei ra'os panecha, after I see your face. Ki oit chafai. The words ki oit chafai is superfluous. Acharei ra'os panecha. What do you mean ki oit chafai? Says Chaim HaKadosh, but it's not enough to see your face. If you would be alive but be an Egyptian, I'd rather you not be here. Ki oit chafai, you're still alive, you're still a from a yin. Says the Chaim HaKadosh, listen to this lashon. V'doma yeduo, ki atzadikim yoser chafetzim v'heder aben. They'd rather not have a son, but yoser ben Hashem, than to have a son that's wicked. Frightening thing. Frightening thing. But it explains to us how bad it is to have a Ben Rush. I quoted to you earlier. Kasha Tabis Rabbi said, Beisa Shalom Yosim on the Chavis Goyim Mother. You know what that means? It says Milchamas Goyim Mother is when all the 70 nations come against Klal. So that's worse than World War II. That's World War II is only Germany. This will be all 70 nations. All 70 nations. Goyim Mother, Taisa says, we go back to your 70. And a Tavis Rabbi say Beisa Shalom is worse than Milchamas Goyim Mother. Frightening thing. Tell young ladies often, or young women often, when they want to know if they should marry a young man. So I say to them, tell them, what kind of a father is he going to be to your children? You have to look for that. Not only what kind of husband he's going to be, what kind of a father. Tavis Rabbi said, Beisa Shalom is worse than Goyim Mother. Please watch the wires. Please watch the wires. B. People send their children to yeshivas that are convenient, or that are cheap, or that don't have demands. I know somebody that told me that because the yeshiva wanted to know if their child had a filter on the internet, they were so insulted by it, they wanted to move their child to a yeshiva that was much more modern. I said, are you crazy because you're insulted? You want to ruin your child's life? You don't understand. And then when the child all of a sudden is coming home in jeans, girls coming home in jeans, cut off jeans, smoking on Shabbos. I don't know what happened. I want to conclude, and we will be in time for a 11:15 Maariv. By the way, there is a shir here. It's a great shir, totally different shir, totally different. from Toldos 5764, which I believe was the first year that we were here in this space in Medrash. It's a very, very good share. There's a CD on that. No, sorry. Tonight's share will be available as Hashem after as well. It says, "Vayevorech Isai, Vayetzaveyu." Yitzhak blessed Yaakov, and he instructed him, "Vayomer lo sikat isha nebnais Canaan." Says the Chofetz Chaim, I think it's out of it. Not sure. Says the Chofetz Chaim, it's after Shul. Says the Chofetz Chaim, that's the recipe for chinuch. Bless him and then command. You want your children to listen, you have to first show them ha'oras panim. You have to say nice things, and then you could give them the commands. But if you're just commanding, you're going to get nowhere. You always have to have that synthesis of Vayevorech Isai and then Vayetzaveh. The lesson from the Gadol Adar. As always, we pray for those that are sick, they should get better, and those that have been miserable. Some people are still lacking power. People are displaced from their homes. They've lost their jobs, destruction of inventory. Elderly people have lost everything that they're familiar with. We ask Hashem to have Rahmanas on Klal Yisrael and bring everybody much needed Yeshua. Kanani Menakasha, Merotzak HaMishpal Hu, the Zakreitis Yisrael, the Fikra Kirvel after Mitzvah, Shnema, Adinoi Kopei Tzumat Tzidkoi, Yad V'Torah B'Yad.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.